All right, future policymakers. Let's dive into something you'll probably see on your UPSC exams.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We're talking about the gross domestic knowledge product.
GDKP.
You got it.
It's basically like GDP, but it measures the knowledge economy.
Right, like how much brain power we've got as a nation.
Exactly.
And we're getting all this from recent discussions from the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, or MOSPI, as they like to call it.
And, of course, it was reported in the Indian Express and some PIB releases, too.
All very relevant for your exam prep.
Absolutely. This is hot stuff.
So we know the why, the need to see knowledge as valuable in our economy.
Right.
But what is this GDKP? What is it really all about? How's it different from GDP?
Well, GDKP really tries to measure the impact of knowledge on our economy and society.
Okay.
It's something GDP doesn't really do. Like, think about research or software development, artificial intelligence, digital services.
Stuff like that.
All that's fueled by knowledge and innovation.
Makes sense. But you know what I find interesting? Intellectual property is considered like gross fixed capital formation right now in GDP.
Yeah.
Seems like we need a better way to look at it.
I think so. GDKP can give us that nuance.
Okay, so it's more detailed, but how do you measure knowledge? It's not exactly something you can count up.
That's the tricky part. Most PI's thinking about a satellite account for the knowledge economy,
Interesting.
similar to how we track tourism or culture.
So it's like a specialized lens.
Yeah, focused on specific activities that are driven by knowledge and innovation.
I can already see some problems, though.
Yeah.
Getting reliable data on knowledge can't be easy.
It's definitely a challenge. Data's all over the place.
Plus, how do you even decide what counts as knowledge for this GDKP thing?
Exactly. Defining the boundaries of knowledge can be really subjective.
And there's double counting.
Ugh, yeah. We got to make sure we're not counting the same thing twice when we try to combine GDKP with GDP.
Lots of challenges.
For sure.
But you know what? This is a big deal for our listeners, the UPSC aspirants out there. GDKP is likely to show up on both your prelims and mains, especially for economics and current affairs.
Oh, absolutely. You can bet on that.
Just imagine being asked to analyze the limits of GDP or discuss GDKP's potential for a knowledge-based economy.
You got to be ready for those kinds of questions.
Knowing this stuff could really help you out.
Big time.
It shows you're keeping up with what's going on in the economy,
And then that you can think critically about it.
which is what the UPSC is all about.
Totally. It's not just about memorizing facts.
You got to show you can understand complex things like GDKP.
And use that knowledge in real-world scenarios.
Now, you might be thinking, hold on, haven't we heard about GDKP before?
You have a good memory.
Well, back in 2021, NETI, IOG proposed a similar thing,
Right.
but it got shelved because of issues with how they were going to measure it and whether the data was reliable.
Those are valid concerns.
But why bring it back now? What's changed?
Well, it seems like there's a renewed interest in GDKP.
Okay.
Maybe because there's this global push for new economic indicators. And people are realizing India's potential as a knowledge powerhouse.
So the world is changing, and we need to change with it.
Exactly.
Seems like MOSPI is really trying to figure out the best way to implement this GDKP thing.
Yeah, they're being careful.
Like they're setting up a whole technical committee to look into how to make a GDKP satellite account work.
Very smart.
They want to get it right from the start.
Makes sense, but it's tough. Measuring knowledge isn't as simple as counting up how much steel we make.
I bet.
It's just not that straightforward.
Give us an example of something that would be hard to measure.
Well, think about trying to collect data on research papers from all the universities in India,
Okay.
plus patents from companies all over and informal skills training that happens in villages and towns everywhere.
Whoa.
It's a massive data puzzle.
Wow.
And then we have to decide what knowledge even means for GDKP.
Right.
Such a big idea. Should we include traditional knowledge systems?
Hmm.
What about those practical skills people learn through apprenticeships?
Yeah, those are really good questions.
Defining knowledge for this could be a whole debate in itself.
So lots to think about.
Definitely.
We talked about why we need GDKP, going beyond GDP in our knowledge-driven economy.
Right.
And what it is, this idea of a satellite account to measure knowledge.
A new way of looking at things.
Before we go any further, let's recap the key takeaways for those preparing for the UPSC.
Sounds good.
First, GDKP shows a big change in how we think about the economy.
Yeah.
It means we're recognizing that knowledge is as important as making things for growth and development.
Absolutely.
Second, GDKP is probably going to be a big deal in your exams.
Definitely be ready for it.
Be prepared to talk about its benefits,
Like guiding policy decisions and promoting innovation?
but also the challenges of putting it into practice.
Like collecting data and figuring out what knowledge even means.
You really got to understand GDKP and what it means.
It could make a difference in your exam prep.
Remember, the UPSC is looking for people who can think critically
And analyze complex issues.
and apply their knowledge to real-world problems.
That's what we're trying to do here on the Deep Dive.
We want to give you the knowledge and insights to ace those exams and become awesome policymakers.
We're here to help.
Hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss our future deep dives.
And if you have any questions or thoughts on GDKP, leave a comment below.
We love hearing from you.
It's great to connect with other UPSC aspirants.
All right, well, let's get back to GDKP.
Let's do it.
We've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore.
Next time, we'll dive into the challenges of actually putting GDKP into action
The real nitty-gritty.
and how it could affect different sectors.
And what it means for the whole world.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back. Back again for part 2 of our GDKP deep dive. Picking up where we left off, we were talking about defining and measuring knowledge.
Yeah, figuring that out seems pretty hard. You can't just measure how much someone knows by weighing their brain or something.
Nope, not quite. One of the big problems is figuring out how to give knowledge a value in money terms. Like, how do you say what a scientific discovery or a new software program is worth in rupees?
Or even the skills of a whole workforce.
Exactly. Our usual economic models don't really deal with that very well.
They're more about stuff you can touch and see.
Yeah, tangible goods and services. Most PI might have to get creative, borrow ideas from intellectual property law or technology assessment.
Okay, let's say they figure out how to measure GDKP. What changes then? Why should our UPSC folks care about this besides the exam?
Good question. GDKP isn't just theory. It can actually change how policies are made and resources are used. Imagine knowing the payoff from investments in education, research and development, even specific skills training.
That would be huge. We could make policies that actually work.
Instead of just looking at GDP growth, we could use GDKP to see how investments create knowledge and innovation.
Leading to smarter economic development.
Exactly.
So big picture, I get it. But how would GDKP work in different sectors? Could it really change things in healthcare or agriculture?
Definitely. It could affect almost everything. Take healthcare, for example. GDKP could show us the economic benefits of medical research, disease prevention, even public health campaigns.
So we can prove that a healthier population is good for the economy.
Yes, and that could lead to more investment in preventing illness rather than just treating it.
Makes sense. What about education?
GDKP could help us see which ways of teaching work best or what impact specific skills training has.
So instead of just counting graduates, we could see how much their education is helping the economy grow.
And innovate. And that could tell us how much we're getting back from our investment in education. Maybe even guide how we design the curriculum to match what the economy needs.
Wow, that's amazing. What about sectors that don't seem focused on knowledge, like agriculture or manufacturing? Would GDKP apply there too?
It's relevant everywhere. Even in those sectors, knowledge is becoming more important. Think about things like precision farming, using data to improve crops, or using high-tech in factories.
Yeah, technology is changing those industries.
Yeah.
And technology comes from knowledge.
Exactly. GDKP could help us measure and track these changes, showing how valuable knowledge is, even in places you wouldn't expect.
This is awesome. I bet everyone listening is taking notes like crazy.
I hope so. This is something they should really know. It shows they understand how economic thinking is changing and the challenges India faces in becoming a knowledge-based economy.
It's like watching a whole new way of thinking about economics emerge right in front of us.
It really is. And it's not just happening in India. Lots of countries are asking these same questions, trying to measure the value of knowledge in the 21st century.
So we're not alone. Are there any countries ahead of us in this? What can we learn from them?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore in our next segment. Stick around as we go global with the knowledge revolution.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive on GDKP. We've talked about why it's important and how it could change things. Now let's zoom out and think about what this means for the whole world.
It's really interesting how India looking into GDKP is part of a global trend. Lots of countries are realizing that GDP doesn't tell the whole story anymore. It misses the value of knowledge and innovation, especially in this century.
So we're not the only ones thinking about this. Are any other countries further along in creating new ways to measure this stuff?
Mm.
What can we learn from them?
Absolutely. There are a few countries already trying out different metrics to measure knowledge. For instance, the UK has something called the Measuring National Well-Being Framework. It
Oh.
includes things like education skills and innovation. It's not just about how much money the country is making, but how well people are doing overall.
So they're looking at the bigger picture. What about other countries?
Canada has been working on what they call the composite leading indicator of knowledge-based activities.
What a mouthful.
It looks at things like investment in research and development, the growth of industries that rely on knowledge, even how many patents are being filed.
Wow. Seems like they're trying to get a really detailed view of how knowledge is driving their economy. Are there any common themes in all these different approaches?
Definitely, everyone seems to agree that knowledge is becoming a crucial part of how economies work, just like land labor and capital.
It's like a fourth factor of production.
Right. And we need new ways to measure and manage this resource.
Now, this is where things get interesting for our UPSC aspirants. Imagine being asked to compare India's approach to GDKP with these other countries. What are our strengths and weaknesses? What can we learn from them?
Those are great questions and exactly the kind of thinking the UPSC is looking for. You need to go beyond just knowing what GDKP is. You need to analyze it in a global context and compare different approaches.
This global perspective is so important, especially for future policymakers and diplomats.
Absolutely. Knowing how the world is measuring knowledge can help India find its place in this new knowledge-based economy.
So it's not just about our own economy, but also about competing internationally and having influence globally.
Exactly. In a world shaped by technology and ideas, a country's ability to create use and build on knowledge will determine its success.
That's a powerful thought. It seems like even though GDKP is still new, it could completely change how we see economic progress and even shift the balance of power in the world.
It really could. And for India, with our young population, growing tech sector, and rich history of knowledge creation, the potential is huge.
So for our listeners, preparing for the UPSC GDKP is a must-know. It could come up in all sorts of questions, from definitions and methods to its impact on the economy, social development, even India's global standing.
Don't just memorize the facts. Dive deeper into why GDKP matters, what it could achieve, the challenges it faces, and why it's relevant in our changing world.
And as always, we encourage you to go beyond just listening. Think critically, form your own opinions, and be ready to express them. That's what will help you stand out in the exam and become the thoughtful leaders of tomorrow.
The UPSC isn't looking for people who just repeat information. They want people who can think, analyze, and come up with new ideas. Your understanding of GDKP can show them you have those qualities.
Exactly. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing your knowledge further.
And stick with the deep dive. We're here to help you on your UPSC journey with in-depth analysis and discussions on the most important topics.
Make sure you've liked and subscribed to our channel, and leave a comment below with your questions or thoughts on GDKP. We love hearing from our community of dedicated UPSC aspirants.
Until next time, keep digging into the world of knowledge, because as we've seen today, knowledge really is power.
And that's a wrap on another episode of The Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with more insights and analysis, all designed to help you ace the UPSC exams and build a better future for India.